everybody has a story going into real estate, and you just never know what somebody has gone through, and kind of, everybody's why. I think we talk a lot about that, not only in real estate, but just in life. And like, what is your why? And it usually naturally comes out, when you're telling your story, the why is. Hi, friends. Welcome to Getting Your Real Estate Life Together. I'm Tracy Hicks with All Things Real Estate. And today we get to talk to my friend Kama, who I think you've been a customer for a while, but then we've met at NAR more than once, right?
We actually met at C.A.R. first,
Okay.
and
Years ago.
then at N.A.R. Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
And
yes, yes.
at the time of our recording right now, we just both got back from the NAR conference last month. And then now we're coming off the holiday weekend. So we're both like, is it Monday or Tuesday? What day is it?
What day is
So, Kama,
it?
thank you for being here. I want to let you introduce yourself, and then we'll just jump right in.
So I have been in real estate for the last 16 years. I am a broker owner of my real estate company, C&B Realty Services. And what I'm excited about is that I have been in the real estate, I opened my business during the pandemic. I opened
Yes.
up my doors September 1st of 2020.
No way.
Despite what was going through, because I'm a firm believer is that you can't allow, things that's going on in your life to stop you from
Yep.
doing things. 'Cause I've been there, done that. But it was like something inside me. I knew I was going to open it that year, even before, the pandemic. So anyway, I still kept going. And so we opened up September 1st, just celebrated our year anniversary.
Congrats.
Excited about that. Thank you so much.
So
I'm
exciting.
a community leader. I am a mom of three. I'm a teacher. I do quite a bit. Professor, I do quite a bit. So
Well, you're such a realtor.
I know, right?
Doing it all, doing it all. Okay, so let's back up. I
Uh-huh.
didn't know that you just started your company, so that's amazing.
Yes.
But you did tell me the acronym for your company. So CMB, what does that stand for?
It's actually my children's initials. So my kids, and ironically, like I didn't even realize that they had the same initial until my third child. Like I know it just didn't dawn on me, right?
I
I
love
was like,
it.
wait a second, they got the same initials. So I have it's Clifford Marquise, Cheyenne Monique, and Christopher Michael Burton.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so where were you before you started your own brokerage?
I was at a company called Pro One Investments, small boutique company. My
Okay.
broker has been in the business, broker, he's been in the business over 30 years. And and he believed in me wanting and supported me wanting to get my own brokerage. So I
Yeah.
was with him for about 5 years before I did that transfer.
And see, that is one of the things that, we get a lot of new agents listening, and picking a brokerage is obviously a big deal and one of the more important things after you get your license. But I also have a brokerage, and my business partner, I actually was his assistant when I started 18 years ago.
Mm.
And one of the things that I loved was what he said was, I have an assistant until you become a realtor on your own. And basically you want to teach that person everything you can about real estate, because nobody, let's be honest, nobody else is,
No,
right? You're just kind of
nobody else is.
you feel on your own. Especially 18 years ago, it was really like, okay, you got your license, now what do I do? And
Exactly.
so getting people like that in the business is a really, really important part of it. And culture and things like that, I think, is now more prevalent than it was back in the day. But I love hearing that your broker was supportive and helped you through that process, because that's also a big part of it. It's hard,
It is.
and you made a decision during the pandemic, and I think that's amazing, because that's when a lot of really great things happen, is when you think it shouldn't. But
Absolutely.
if it felt right to you, that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Exactly.
You got to
Okay,
go with the
so
heart.
yeah, so let's go back, because you talked before we do the podcast. I always am like, okay, what do we want to make sure that we hit? And I have your bio, and so I have lots of questions. But tell us about how you got started in real estate, and how did that happen, and kind of what you were doing prior to that.
So let's see, it was 2004, and I was in a very abusive relationship, abusive and controlling. I think it was more controlling than it was abusive.
Yeah.
And I was working as a receptionist at a lending company, mortgage
Oh,
company.
wow.
Yeah. And so I knew nothing about mortgage, knew nothing about real estate. I joined it. I fell in love with it. And I remember being a part of that. I was like, one day I want to be a lender. Well, unfortunately, we had which I believe, and it's been proven that she's a racist supervisor. When I went to talk to her about me wanting to move up and become a lender, she told me that this is not going to be a good fit for me. I'm not going to
Wow.
make it in and all this kind of stuff. And I just say I know she's racist because she had a few claims on her during that time. So she didn't make me feel too good, but I
Right.
still love that feel of the freedom of moving like back and forth. So it was something that started like, depositing like a seed that was deposited.
Yeah.
But while I was working there, my ex-husband my husband at the time, my ex-husband, he kept calling me, telling me to come home. I need this. I can't find that. My car is stuck. This is happening. So I'm like, I can't keep leaving my job in the middle of me working because you can't get your life together. So I
Right.
ended up quitting, and I've always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom or find a job that I can work from home.
Yeah.
So I picked up that thing called a newspaper. I don't know if we still have those.
Yeah, it's
I
just
picked up this
online.
newspaper, right. So I'm reading it, and it's this big old work from home. So I was like, okay, perfect. Interview with a company. They were like, we'll pay for your schooling. And I did that because I needed something that was going to give me the freedom and the flexibility to have the desire to work at home with my kids. And then also, if my husband at the time, if he needed me, then I'm there. I don't have to tell somebody that I have to leave
And
or
there's
that I
that
have to do
control
that. And it's
part.
that control part, right? So if he gonna control me, it's right from the house and I'm good to go, right?
He even
So
controlled that. He's controlling you knowing he's controlling.
exactly,
Ugh,
exactly. And I laugh because now I can look back and I'm stronger, much stronger than what I was before.
sure.
But that's why I got into it. I really didn't even know much about the selling part of it. And I thought I could work on my own, didn't realize I had to work for a broker. But that was my driving force to get me into real estate. It was never a desire as a kid to say, yeah, I want to be a realtor. Or at
Yeah,
any
yeah.
time, it was that point in time that I said yes.
Yeah, and you also had a little bit of that lending experience. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
you had a little bump in the road, but I'm sure that that is something that, well, we'll talk a little bit more about that too, about your nonprofit. But I think that, everybody has a story going into real estate, and you just never know what somebody has gone through, and kind of, everybody's why. I think we talk a lot about that, not only in real estate, but just in life, and like, what is your why? And it usually naturally comes out, when you're telling your story. The why is really obvious. And so I love that you persevered, and check you out now, however many years later, you have your own brokerage,
Yeah.
and I just think that's freaking fantastic. So okay. So then also, so what came next? So you realtored for quite some time. When did you start your nonprofit, and tell us a little bit about that?
So my nonprofit started back in 2015. I actually put on an event, an entrepreneur conference. I love putting on conferences. So I put on an entrepreneur conference here in my city of Moreno Valley, and there was someone talking about a nonprofit, and it was something I thought about, just didn't know how to go about it. And at the time, the IRS had just changed it to where it's much easier and faster to streamline as long as you didn't make a certain amount of money within the last 3 years. So I spoke to her. I was like, I know I want to do something. I don't know what yet. And it was that day. The next day I was driving to church, and I heard this name in my spirit. It said, Loving Me First. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the name of my
That's the
nonprofit.
name.
That is the name. So I
Uh,
started the nonprofit called Loving Me First. And it came from me going through the domestic violence marriage and the
yeah.
control. And what happened is I actually lost an aunt who was killed the same year I was born. I have her middle name. Her name was Linda, and my middle name is Lynn. So my name is Kama Lynn. And she was literally, I tell people, she was literally loved to death. And so I never wanted that to be my story. I realized that the reason why I went through it, maybe the reason why my aunt went through it, was because I didn't love who I was. She didn't love who she was. was, because it wasn't something that happened overnight.
Right.
I'm sure she was going through a lot of issues with the guy or what have you. I realized that when I was going through this depression, that it all came from my unhappiness with who Kama was. I
Yeah.
questioned me. I was like, who am I? I must be a bad person. Nobody will ever love me. I'm talking all this negative stuff about me because of how somebody made me feel and the way they viewed me, their opinion. And so I realized that the reason I was able to get out of it, because I had to learn who I was first, and had to learn how to love me first. And I was like, if I can show other people how to love who they are first, then we got something. So we did the nonprofit because of the fact that it is a 501c3. I can go out in the community, I can get sponsorships or grants, and people will support, because it does cost to help others. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I was fully equipped so that I can help others during the process. So that's where Loving Me First came from. And I've been doing it since 2015.
I love that. Okay, so tell us quickly what Loving Me First does, and then I also want to hear about how it blends into your real estate business. I mean, it a lot of people don't really. It seems like it makes the most sense, obviously, right? When you have a nonprofit and your real estate business, how you can mesh the two. But I also think it is a big undertaking. It's a lot of work, forming your nonprofit, but also being a realtor at the same time. But I can imagine the harmony in between the two. So I'm really interested in hearing that, and I'm sure most people are. So tell us what the nonprofit does and kind of what you do with it, and then how it blends into your real estate business. Because you're still realtoring too on top of it.
Yeah, I am. I am, in addition to running the brokerage with 7 agents. So
Yes.
absolutely. So what we're doing right now, I have a mentorship program. So I teach girls in the schools how to love who they are. And it's called Girls Club. And in Girls Club, each week we talk about something different. One of our most recent sessions, we had Girls Talk, where I let the girls write down questions that they had and ask. I answer them. My daughter helps me as well. We have different areas where we do life skills. So
Yeah.
they learn everything from social etiquette, table etiquette, goal setting, affirmations, journaling, careers, different things like that. So that's what we do. I've been in the schools for the last 7 years, and I'm contracted with a school district here, was contracted with another school district. We also put on events. I have an annual girls conference that we put on every October. We just had one October 2021, which was my biggest one yet. We had about almost 250 girls and their parents there.
Wow.
And it's all free to the community. I raise money for it. So that's what I do, is just teach the girls how to love who they are, because if we can start them at a young age, hopefully they won't make some of the mistakes that we've made. So my youngest is 4th grade all the way up to 12th grade. And the way I'm able to put this together is this: I believe as realtors, because we sell the community, we have to give back to the community. So I always tell realtors, I tell my agents, find an area that means something to you, an area that you can connect to, whether it's domestic violence or breast cancer or Alzheimer's or just young kids or seniors, whatever it is. Find something that you can give back to, because somebody's going to have to give back to you, or have had to give back to you. Maybe you were homeless. There's things out there. There's so many people that need community. So we can't sell this whole community and be the community expert and a community celebrity, and we don't want to give back.
If you're not involved, right?
So that's how I'm able to marry the two, because I'm selling the community. I want to be able to give back, and we should all, as realtors and brokers, find some way to give back to the community.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, and also we say it all the time. I don't want to say, when you're marketing yourselves, just like you said, when you're marketing yourself in a community, and it just it just feels so much better when you're giving back to that community, and when you're doing something that is gonna, it also is benefiting you. You're getting something out of it, I'm sure, when you talk to these girls, and the joy that it gives you. And I mean, I can't even imagine how many people have probably come up to you and said, that really meant a lot to me, and have private stories that maybe they don't feel safe talking about, or and we live in a different day and age now, but every era, generation, if you will, presents its own issues, whatever that may be. The world's never going to be perfect, and I think having people like you in the community is a big deal, and you're not doing it for the accolades. You're not doing it for the whatever. You're doing it out of your own personal story, which, is always the best because then you connect with them in a way.
Mhm.
So I love that you're telling people do something that is important to you and that has a connection to you in a way. Sometimes people might not think about, my grandma had Alzheimer's and it really affected me, but maybe they're not thinking about that as a way to like give back in their, and even if it means you don't have the time, even if it's, money, or you give back a little bit, for every commission that you make or whatever the case may be, giving back is a huge part of being a realtor, or at least I think it should be more.
It could be.
I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you have like NAR. NAR has it's called the Good Neighbor Next Door.
Yep.
They reward people, realtors in the community for giving back to the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something huge. So I just truly believe, even before I knew about the Good Neighbors award, it was just something that I did because it was just in me.
Yeah.
And people just need to find what's in them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Okay, so you talk perfect segue of going into NAR. I know that you've done some speaking engagements and things like that. I know you're involved in a couple of other have you spoken at the NAR conference before?
No, I just got
What?
denied.
Oh, girl. You
I have
better.
to tell you though, I put in an application to speak for 2021, but I wasn't confident in it. I don't think it was strong enough.
Yeah.
But they are having something where a webinar coming up where they're going to explain to you what they look for and things like that.
Oh,
So I will
good.
apply again. I just have all of these different topics that I like to talk about, and
Yeah.
so that one maybe I just need to write it up a little bit better. But no, I have not spoken there.
Well, you
I
will next year.
I believe it.
I feel it.
All right, I believe it. I believe it, but I've definitely spoken on definitely different platforms. So
Yeah, yeah.
the Woman Up community, are you familiar with Woman
Yeah.
Up?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I've been on the Woman Up where I've been on a panel. I was on a
Good.
panel at Inman, and so it's different areas and different places that I've been a part of.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that. And if you guys haven't been to National Association of Realtors conference, I urge everybody to go because I was a realtor for 17, 18 years, and I had never been to a NAR conference until I did the expo for all things real estate. And the first year we did it, I think I might have did C.A.R first, the California Association of Realtors. But the first one we did was either Chicago or Boston. I can't remember which, but we were so excited to be there. We were in the very back because we did it last minute. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do expo. But, obviously I love talking to realtors. And so I'm always going to ask them, how's the conference? And I'm expecting, like, oh, I skipped out. I was at the pool or, this or that. And every single person was like, I'm having the best time ever. The conferences are great. The people are fantastic. The networking and just, getting out of your element wherever you are and going to a national conference and seeing that many realtors in one place is truly fascinating. And I encourage and recommend everybody to go. It's just we're in Portland, and I think we're like anti like group gathering and stuff like that. Not because of COVID, but just because we're like we're do our own thing. We don't, But I see more and more Portland people going to these conferences. In fact, came back on the plane with a couple of them, and they were like, "It was my first time, and it was so great. Never thought I would like it." And they all loved it. So I always recommend that. And we get to meet each other in person and establish and build those relationships. So how long have you been going to NAR conferences?
Honestly, so I'm going to be 100% honest.
You're all
This
last year
is-
was my first.
This year was my first full conference.
No way.
Yeah, so I went to San Francisco in 2019,
Okay.
but I only went to our regional caucus. I did not even go into the expo. This was my first time.
That is so
you know
funny.
what? Let me take that back. For expo, it was my first time. For legislative,
Yeah.
the ones that they have in May, I went there a couple of years ago. They had a small conference, very, very small.
Because
Just
of COVID that year. Yeah.
no. It was a couple
Oh,
of years before that. They just had a few vendors out there, and so it was like a small expo. When I say small, it was, I don't know how many people. They
okay.
had probably 10% of what they would have at the regular
Yeah.
one. And so I did not go to the meetings because I was a part of Women's Council of Realtors. So I was going to
Okay.
the Women's Council of Realtors national meeting, but this was my first full conference. I got the conference bug by going to our California Association of Realtors Expo maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. I didn't even know that existed. So when I went,
Wow.
I was in like realtor heaven. I was like, what in the world is this? I was so excited. It was like
Yes.
Disneyland for me. So I'm
Right.
super excited to go. And but this was my first full conference and I'm excited for Orlando next year.
Okay,
So
I was gonna say, yeah, y'all, it's in Florida, it's next
yes,
time, so us in Portland, we're really like, "Oh, yeah." So all my Portland and West Coasters have got to show up in Florida.
absolutely.
Y'all are used to the sun in Cali, you're in Southern
Yeah, we are.
California, but
It's nice and 80. So
nice
yeah.
and 80. Yeah, it's nice and 50 right now. It's not raining at the present moment, but I'm sure
That's
it will within a couple hours. Okay, so we just kinda talked a little bit about, like, new not new realtoring, but kind of new things that you've done as a realtor, and also too, that's just the perfect example of how we're always learning and trying to better ourselves as realtors. And so there is so much valuable information out there that is so important. I know that even in my growth, like I've never done coaches and stuff like that in my business, and starting an online e-commerce business, I did not know. I was just a realtor. I did not know what I was doing. So one of the things that I have left out, and the first time I ever hired a coach, it was a money coach, and we also did a time audit, and the one thing that was left out of my time audit was professional development for me. Like I literally am so busy, just like realtors are so busy worrying about everybody else, they forget about themselves. And so national is also another way to kind of hone in. And you also need, that tank filled up too, where you do get excited and you're like,
absolutely.
this is the best thing ever. Why was I not doing this before? So I
Yeah.
definitely recommend that. But you're also you mentioned this, you're an educator and you like to, I don't want to say educate, but you like to help
I do.
people, new realtors. And you also told me that you wrote a book and you're also an author and you're working on another one. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
want to talk about all those things,
Okay.
but I want to hear about what you're doing in the realtor community as far as educating and helping people in their business.
Well, I've put together for my local association things that I did a class on the benefits of, our local, state, and national associations because a lot of people complain about the associations. Why do I have to pay this money? My broker
Yep.
is making me do this, and I'm like, do you understand the resources that you have
Yeah.
that is right at your fingertips that are member benefits? And if these benefits are taken away, you don't realize how much it contributes to your business. So I put together something like that for my real estate community or for my local association. I was also a trainer for RPR, which is a Realtors Property Resource, which I need to re-up that. I've spoken, like I said, at Woman Up. I've put things together within Women's Council of Realtors for our
Mhm.
how to get a strategic partner. So there's different ways that I've spoken and taught in real estate. And it's just what I love to do. I'm an adjunct professor. So I teach pre-license courses in California. So in California,
Nice.
you need to take a principal practice and an elective, real estate elective. So I've been doing that since 2018. And
Nice.
so I just do things like that because I just think it's important to stay educated. Our office mission statement is educate, inspire. I'm sorry, empower, inspire, educate. I probably
Educate.
should have put educate first, but I always say educate. We're all about education because we need to stay educated in our industry. And like you said, that
Yeah.
professional development. If we're not doing that and not staying educated, we're not doing our clients a service.
Service.
I always tell my clients, look, when you see me out, that is your commission dollars at work.
Yeah.
So that way they understand that I'm not just out here having fun, making money, parlaying. I'm working. I'm
Yes.
developing myself so I can be the best professional for you.
Yeah, yeah, and you're in true realtor fashion, you're sharing that and spreading that, and I think more of us need to be empowered to do that more because you don't think about it, and I also love that you mentioned your local association because I think a lot of times you hit the nail on the head when we're like, "Oh, we gotta pay these dues, and what is it?" Maybe you're not thinking on the national level and kind of the legislative part of the things that NAR is doing for you, but if you hone it down into your local association and kind of what they're doing for us as realtors,
Hmm.
become a part of that. And you've done that. You're teaching, you're doing stuff with your local association. And just like you said, there's so many resources at the local level that you, uh, I don't know, 7 out of 10 realtors probably don't even think about. So if you're looking for stats or you're looking for help on something, start utilizing your local association a little more. At least put it in your toolkit for your, as your resources of your go-to. I don't think we do that enough. I know definitely we don't here. And it ends up being the same people on the same boards and just recycling through. And we need more new people. And just like you said, it was your first time on a panel at Woman Up, and Woman Up is fairly new. They're only a few years old, and so those are all up and coming new things. If one thing doesn't excite you, something else will. You just kind of have to
Absolutely.
seek it out and take that time. And so hopefully somebody will go, after listening to this, go to their local association and see what do you guys have to offer me? Like,
Right.
wait, I've been
Right.
paying for this and not utilizing it. So
Well, it's definitely important because again, it's so many changes, so many things that's happening in the industry.
so
Um,
fast.
you have to keep up with what's happening. I'll give an example. I've spoken at the California Association of Realtors level where I've been either on a panel or moderated a panel on fair housing practices and diversity and the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Things like that. It's important to take these certification classes at home at diversity, even though I don't have that one as of yet, but there's a fair housing simulator that people can take. There's so many resources and tools out there to make sure you're checking your biases and things like that. So that way, again, it just keeps you going. It keeps you fresh, making sure you're doing a self-check about yourself. It's just too many things out there that
Yeah.
can help you develop and definitely take advantage. As a matter of fact, my agents, I told them all, go get a certification in something,
Something.
because when you get that certification, you become that expert in that scenario. Where just today, I just got a text from one of my realtors who just got into the business. He's brand new, and he just got his military relocation specialist certification. Why? Because
Nice.
I'm like, go learn something. And I told him what else to go join a VA rep, the veterans real estate professional. Go join these things and don't look at it as, oh, that's another place for me to spend money. No, it's an investment. And
Mhm.
two, that's a way that not only do you learn, but you can get referrals. Like, you can get
Meet
business out of
people.
this stuff. You meet other people, you grow your business. So that it just goes a long way. Trust me, that professional development, that networking. I don't know everybody across the nation, but I got a bunch of cards that I'm following up with, and maybe they'll send me business. So we got to
Right.
look at it a little different.
And also too, it gives you a sense of community, just like you were talking about earlier, for him to go and do that. Now he kind of has, I don't want to say like a sense of purpose, but that is always a realtor's problem, is that there are so many things. There's so many different directions you can go in with your marketing or your business. You feel like everyone is your client, and they're not.
Right,
You hone in on your people, your tribe, and that's who you network to. And doing things like that, especially being new and not knowing which direction you want to go in or which you should, doing things like that is going to help you. Now maybe he goes to that and he's like, yeah, okay, that's not really my jam, but maybe then he goes to something else. But the fact that he went to something has now created a path towards doing some other things and seeing what that looks
absolutely.
like. And I'm sure there's a reason why, chose that, whether his brother's uncle's dad is in the military or
Right,
whatever, or, maybe his grandpa was. So things like that really does help in more ways than one, especially in your business and trying to decide which direction you're going to market and how you're going to do that and who you're going to market to. And so I think that's great advice. And that's stuff that you don't learn as a new realtor. And, and having that broker that's going to help you. That's another thing too, is like, there's some brokerages that are really, really great at helping agents. And then there's other brokerages that they're not, it's
right.
not in their bandwidth. And so
Yeah,
it's not in their wheelhouse. So choosing a brokerage that is going to have what you need to support is really important.
absolutely.
Um, okay. So I want to talk about the book, because
Okay.
I think this is fantastic, because a lot of people that talk about writing a book, and the story that you told me really briefly is exactly what I think a lot of people that want to read a book or write a book happens to. So tell us what the book is and then how you came to and why you decided to write a book and how it ended up being published.
So the name of my book is called I Fell in Love with His Promises. And the way it started was I was dating this guy. And I knew, for one, I knew I wanted to write a book. I just didn't know how. Do I have enough words to say? How do I elaborate? I don't, will
How does
somebody
this
read it?
work? Yeah.
Yes.
How do you write a book?
So all that is literally going through my mind, literally. And so I was like, okay, I don't even know where to get started. So I was thinking about this guy I was dating, and I was just like, we had stopped talking and stopped dating, and I fell in love with him. So I was like, why did I was sweeping. I was just thinking to myself, how did I fall in love with him? And then I heard this voice say, because you fell in love with his promises. I was like, whoa, that's deep. And so
I gotta write this down.
I was like, my goodness. So I called a friend of mine. He's a playwright. And I said, DeMarco, I was sweeping and I told him the story. He said, oh, that'll be a
Good book.
good. No, he said a good play. I said,
Oh.
no. You're not going to take my name. Let me write the book first. And then you can do the play. So that's where the book thought came from.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
wrote that book, and it was just talking about how I fell in love with the promises of man, but I have to learn how to fall in love with the promises of God. And when I do that, the right man will find me. And so that's the premise of the book. And it goes with the loving me first. It talks about my story. It turned into more of a spiritual book. I give scriptures and things like that in there, but I talk about how, again, you focus on you focus on what God wants you to do, and God will do the rest. And so from there, it was a hard thing for me. I wrote it, sat on it for 2 years. And I finally called my publisher and I said, look, it's time. I said, I was afraid that nobody would read it. Nobody would care. I said, but I need to do it. So I wrote it, published it, had a book launch and everything. I've sold books, and now I'm seeking to write another book, but this book will be more for the real estate industry, and just kind of talking about the different things that I believe I wish I would have known going into real estate. And so each chapter is going to go in depth about, like, things we're talking about today,
Yeah.
understanding the associations, understanding budgeting and saving and retirement, things like that. So it's going to kind of go in depth, so that way, depth, I should say, that way when the new agent comes in, they're not coming in just kind of naked per se, like,
Yeah.
here I am,
Right.
they're going to be clothed with the right things that they need to help them sustain. So this can be more of a career, other than I'm about to jump into the industry and make a whole lot of money and jump out.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, so that's what I'm working on.
So we
Good.
just basically created your outline for your book during this podcast.
It's done. Yes.
I have to go back and listen. You'll have to write out, okay, I got to talk about that in the book. There's a chapter,
Yes.
there's a
Yes.
chapter.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of times too, being a realtor, most realtors are, well, first of all, they're all entrepreneurs, but they have that spirit. And so that entrepreneurial spirit, they don't want to just do one thing. They'll realtor for a while, and then, maybe they become a presenter or an author or a broker owner. I think that is not something that you think about when you're going into real estate either. You're thinking you're just going to sell houses, and you probably will for a while, because obviously you got to get your feet wet and know what you're doing and all that good stuff, and also see all of the things that open up as a realtor, and the amount of people that you meet and who you meet, and all of that is networking no matter what,
It is.
right? So writing a
Oh,
book,
you're
and
always networking. Yes.
yes. And so I think that is something that we just don't think about enough while you're realtoring, and that's one of the biggest mistakes, is that they don't treat it like a business. And you are a mini corporation, you are your own company, your own business. Even though you work for a brokerage or whatever, you're still running a corporation, so you have to think of that in that
Yes.
fashion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You do. And even just as you can start off, you may not have to write a whole novel, but you can start off doing a short ebook.
Yeah.
Where you just maybe whatever your expertise is, or
Yep.
whatever you want to do some research on, you can write a book on the home buyer process, 10 ways
Right.
to purchase a home. it's yours. As long as
Yeah.
you do it, start somewhere. I thought my book was going to be not going to be long enough. I thought I had to write this long novel, but it turned into about 100 pages after you, and now big font too, but after you compress it and put it in the right size, your 20 page turns into like 50. So,
Yeah.
don't be afraid about how much, just give the value. And there's people out there, some people do ghostwriting where they give their information to somebody to, write it
Yeah.
all up. They give them their idea. Some people just write like me. I like to write things out. However, but don't be afraid to do it. Just do it. Do it
Yeah.
afraid. If I tell you to
Exactly.
do it, just do it afraid.
Exactly. And just like you said, it took you 2 years to launch it, and everybody has those same, intrepidations. And I think that, and maybe it's not writing a book, maybe it's starting a podcast or doing a webinar or an ebook. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues. And so I think that, and realtors always get that. I mean, I know I did, and it sounds like you did too. You get that itchy foot syndrome where you're like, okay, what else can I do? Or what else am I going to do? And I think that your story and my story, they're not uncommon. I think a lot of people are feeling that.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So we talked about the nonprofit, the book, I think. And then we talked, volunteering. I want to talk about that really quickly. I know obviously we talked about the nonprofit and that a little bit, but is there anything else that we needed to touch on with the volunteering, or did we get it all? I feel like there was something
We
else.
haven't talked about volunteering in the within the association.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because I know your nonprofit, I mean, that is volunteering, but in a different fashion. So I definitely want to talk about that. And then I want to close out with talking about being a mom and a realtor, because there's a lot of those out there too. And it's all about the kiddos. So
Absolutely.
what are you doing in your association? I know you talked about teaching, but what other kinds of things can realtors do, or what are some of the other things that you've been doing in the volunteer world?
Well, before I say this, I have to say this point that I think is important about the importance of volunteerism. I get a lot of people asking questions, well, why this, why that? And when you give your time, when you take time to be a part of a meeting or be on a board or do something like that, you can contribute, because we run our real estate industry. People think it's just staff that does everything. We run our industry.
Us.
So it's important to volunteer. Don't complain about something that you're not willing to give to. And trust me, the volunteers that I'm around, these are top producers. These are people that are killing the game. And I hear people say, well, I don't have time for that. Yes, you do. You have time for it. Trust me, you have time for it. So volunteerism is, to me, it's an important aspect of my business, of being, that's my way to contribute. That's my give back to the business as well.
Yeah.
So currently I am the 2021 president-elect of my local association, which is the Inland Valleys Association of Realtors. I'll be president in 2022. So I'm super duper excited about that. I was on the executive committee for the California Association of Realtors for 2021. And I'm also a director. And then I am I'm on the Fair Housing Committee for NAR for 2021. And then going into 2022, I just found out that I was chosen as a national director through the state for NAR. So I'll be a director for the next 3 years, which I'm super excited.
Hey.
Give back and be able to vote and it's just huge for me.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that and continuing my directorship. I volunteer in different areas. I'm a part of the California Association of Real Estate Brokers, who was founded in 1947. One of the reasons was because it was tough for realtors, Black realtors to be Black real estate agents to be called a realtor. So they were called a realtist. So that's near and dear to me, being a Black woman, and know that even now we still deal with discrimination and things like that. So I'm a part of that. Just was chairing their big conference for the state this past October. I am a past president of the Women's Council of Realtors and past district vice president. And I just finished up their leadership academy for Women's Council. And the last thing, because I'm not going to bore you with all of the stuff that I do.
You're making me tired, not bored.
This one here to me is just like, I'm just super excited. I was chosen for one out of 20 across the nation, and the only one from California to be in the National Association of Realtors Leadership Academy for 2022. So I am like
Congrats.
super excited about that. And so as you see, I have a love for leadership, and people say, well, how do you do it all? At first, it wasn't easy, but it's all about time management. I had to learn how to juggle, and you'd be surprised how much work you don't do, because people think you have to work all day, and it's not as much as what you think, but it's what you put in is what you expect to get out, of course.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be comma when it comes to that, but be you. Whatever it could
Yes.
be it could be the MLS committee at your local association.
Yes.
Join it,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So I do a lot when it comes to leadership and volunteerism. I teach leadership, the importance of it, why we need leaders in our community, in our real estate community, and how that can help you in just so many different areas of your personal life. I'm a Toastmaster. For those that don't know, I think every realtor, every speaker should take Toastmasters, because it helps you build, helps you speak well. So, I just try to help to build other people, because you have to teach other people to help this world go round. Each one teach one.
Contribute.
So
Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
I think you just named the title of one of your next books,
Uh-oh.
Love for Leadership.
Oh, I like that.
Girl, and it kind of ties in a little bit with your love life stuff that you've been talking
Yes.
about too. So, but Love for Leader, I mean, you
Like
just
that.
said that like 3 or 4 times, just
Good eye.
naturally talking about it.
Mhm.
And you're getting me excited. Like, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go volunteer somewhere. Like, what am I, what? Because I'm a past women's council president as well, but our
Okay.
chapter was really small. We are the oldest chapter ever.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but after that, I kind of exhausted myself. And that's another thing you have to be careful
You do.
about. I love that you're doing different things in different places.
Yes.
And what is really easy to do is do the same thing for a long amount of time in one place. And
Yes.
that becomes monotonous, and you get tired and burnt out really easily. The way that you're talking about it, girl, you're still excited. You're not burnt
Oh, I
out.
love it.
You're doing all these things, and maybe
I
it's also
love it.
your love for leadership
I love
again.
it. Yeah.
But I think that needs to be talked about more, and we don't talk about it enough. So I really appreciate that you said all that, because I know that people listening are definitely going to get excited about it too, and think
Good.
about what they can do and kind of how they can get involved in their realtor community and what they can do to help others. Not just, we talked about volunteering in the community, and then I love that you talked about volunteering in your community, your realtor community.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And I love the love for leadership thing. I
Yeah,
think,
I wrote it down. I
okay,
already
good.
got one of my chapters is about the exhaustion, because that's the problem. People can get exhausted. But
Yeah.
Again, you find what you love and you just do it from your heart.
Yep. And also too, you also came full circle when you talked about in the beginning the obstacle that you came up against having, we'll just say it, a racist supervisor, and then now look at you on the Fair Housing Committee and
Look, there you
spreading that information. And so hopefully that will help, that I love the full circle thing, and you definitely have done that. You've probably been around the circle a few times actually.
Well, I'm glad you're paying attention.
Girl, I'm trying to think about where I want to now. After we get done with this, I'm getting on the computer. I'm going to figure out where I'm going to volunteer next. And I'm going to commit
Good.
myself to 2022 to doing something. I have 4 weeks to figure that out. So
Yes.
I'll let you know what I get involved in.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
All right, Kama, thank you so much for being on. I love that we just saw each other last month at NAR, and I was like, oh my gosh, you'd be fantastic on the podcast. And I did not realize how fantastic you'd be. So thank you so much. I just know, again, it comes down to those relationships. You just connect with certain people in certain ways, and you were
Yes.
definitely one of them. And I was there by myself. Usually I take 2 or
Yes.
3 people and I get to talk to people, but this time I was checking people out, making sure that, the swiper wasn't working and all those e-com problems, but
Yes.
I got to say hi to people and make sure that I held on to the information on the people that I could remember. And
Good.
I think you actually reached out, Instagram.
I posted about me being on a podcast on Instagram.
Yes.
And then you were like, I want you on my podcast. I was like,
Yes.
absolutely.
I was like, that is a perfect fit. So
Yes.
yeah. So again, those relationships and those connections, they do so much more than just give information, you get to have relationships, and it
Absolutely.
gets you excited about the business again. So
Yes.
I appreciate you for that. Okay, so we will list everywhere that we can find you on the podcast, but where is the main place that you like people to find you?
Uh, oh, that's a good question. So
You need
let's go
you
to
need a catch
Instagram
all.
because my Facebook is I'm at my 5,000. I keep having to delete people to add people. So Instagram is where I'm trying to build. And the beauty about Instagram is that
Yes.
now it links with my Facebook. So now I can build from there. So definitely Instagram under Comma Speaks.
Okay, I love that. And I love that you also are like, okay, let me focus in on the thing that I need to build on, because I think a lot of people focus on the things that are working
Right.
and not the things that aren't working. So thank you for
Yes,
that little tidbit, Miss
absolutely.
Educator. All right, we'll come find you on Instagram, and then and your brokerage again is
CMB Realty Services. We're located in Southern California in the Riverside County area.
so if you're looking for a real estate
Yeah.
company, comma's your girl.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you and all that you're doing for our community. And I learned a lot, and I know that everybody that's listening will. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.